Everyone thought Tichen Chan was just another quiet player standing in the background. But what if the truth is that he was never in the background at all? What if every move, every silence, and every pause was part of a long game that only ends? In Blood and Power, from the moment Tichen Chan appeared in Season 3, something felt off about him. He did not speak much. He did not rush decisions. He did not show fear when others did. In a city where loud voices usually mean power, Tichen showed silence, and that silence made him dangerous. While others fought for corners, money, and respect, Tichen watched. He listened. He learned. Every time chaos broke out in Chicago, he was already prepared for it. He never reacted late. He never seemed surprised. That alone was a warning sign. Many characters ignored. People around him believed he was simply a calm businessman with strong connections, but calm people in this world are often hiding the most violent plans. His presence did not create noise, but it created pressure. When he entered a room, conversations changed, decisions slowed down, people chose their words carefully. That is not normal respect. That is fear without understanding why. Tichen Chan's silence was not weakness, it was control. In Power Book 4, Force, characters who talk too much usually expose their plans. Tichen never made that mistake. He allowed others to speak first, argue first, and threaten first. That way, they revealed their thinking while he revealed nothing, even during moments of danger. His face stayed calm, no anger, no panic, no emotion. That tells us he already knew how things would play out. When deals were made, he never rushed to shake hands. When alliances formed, he never celebrated. He treated every agreement like something temporary. That behavior suggests one thing clearly. He never believed he was equal to the people around him. He believed he was above them. To him, these players were tools, not partners. That mindset only belongs to someone who sees a bigger picture than everyone else in the room. What made Tichen Chan truly dangerous was not what he did, but how. He did it. He never pulled the trigger himself. He never ordered violence directly. Instead, violence followed him like a shadow. Conflicts started after his visits. Wars escalated after his conversations. People turned on each other without realizing who pushed the first domino. That is the sign of a real mastermind. He understood that the best way to stay safe is to make others destroy themselves. While Tommy and others were busy surviving the next attack, Tichen was planning weeks ahead. He let the city burn slowly while he stayed clean. No fingerprints, no direct blame, just influence, and influence is stronger than bullets in the long run. Looking back now, the warning signs were always there. Tichen Chan never asked for permission. He never begged for protection. He never feared consequences. That means he knew something others did not. He trusted that no matter what happened, he would land on his feet. Characters like that are never minor players. They are either kings in waiting or executioners sent by someone even bigger. Episode 10 does not create his importance, it reveals it. The truth is simple but terrifying. Tichen Chan was never reacting to the power game in Chicago. He was shaping it from the shadows. And once his real identity begins to surface, it becomes clear that the war was never just about territory. It was about control from the very beginning. Tichen Chan's silence was not a personality trait. It was a strategy. In a world where everyone talks to prove strength, he stayed quiet to measure it. Every pause he took allowed others to expose their fears, their greed, and their limits. While gang leaders argued and threatened each other, Tichen listened like a judge, not a participant. He never rushed a response because he did not need to. Time was always on his side. When people speak too much, they reveal where they are weak. Tichen understood this better than anyone in the room. That is why his silence carried weight. People leaned in when he finally spoke, not because his words were loud, but because they were rare. His calm behavior during moments of chaos was another sign that he already knew the outcome. When violence broke out across Chicago, most players reacted emotionally. They made quick moves fueled by anger or fear. Tichen did neither. He showed no shock when alliances fell apart. He showed no concern when bodies dropped. That tells us something important. You only stay calm during disaster if the disaster helps your plan. Chaos did not threaten him, it protected him. While others were distracted by survival, he was quietly gaining ground without lifting a weapon. Tichen also never treated deals as permanent. Every agreement he made felt temporary. Like a stepping stone rather than a destination, he never celebrated success because success, to him, was not the end goal. Control was. When someone believes a deal is final, they relax. Tichen never relaxed. That meant he was always ready to walk away, flip sides, or let someone fall if it benefited him. Loyalty was not something he valued. Usefulness was. And once someone stopped being useful, they stopped being safe. Another key detail was how others reacted to him. People did not challenge him openly. They did not insult him or test his limits the way they did with others. Even powerful figures chose their words carefully around him. That kind of behavior does not come from respect alone. It comes from uncertainty. They sensed that crossing Tichen would bring consequences they could not predict. Fear grows strongest when people do not know where the danger is coming from. Tichen became that unknown danger. He also avoided emotional attachments, no personal grudges, no visible desire for revenge. That made him unpredictable, emotional. Players can be controlled because their pain guides their choices. Tichen had no visible pain. That made him impossible to read. He did not hate anyone enough to rush, and he did not love anyone enough to hesitate. That emotional distance allowed him to make cold decisions without regret. Most importantly, Tichen never acted like an equal. Even when sitting at the same table, he behaved like someone passing through, not someone building roots. That mindset only belongs to someone with a higher position waiting for the right moment. He was never trying to survive Chicago. He was using Chicago. And his silence was the cover that allowed him to do it without being exposed. Tichen Chan never needed to stand in the spotlight to control what happened in Chicago. His power came from movement, not presence. He was rarely the loudest voice in the room, yet events kept shifting in his favor. That was not luck. It was design. He understood something most players in the streets never learn. Real power does not come from pulling the trigger. It comes from deciding who pulls it, when, and why. Tichen mastered that balance. He placed pressure on situations just enough to push people into making violent choices on their own. That way, the blood never touched his hands, but the results always benefited him. Every conflict that exploded around him followed the same pattern: a quiet meeting, a calm suggestion, a simple comment planted at the right time, then silence. Days later, alliances collapsed, crews turned on each other, and territory changed hands. No one ever traced those outcomes back to Tichen because he never demanded action. He allowed pride, fear, and greed to do the work for him. People believed they were acting on their own ideas, when in truth, they were walking down paths he had already cleared. Another reason his moves stayed hidden was timing. Tichen never rushed anything. While others reacted to problems as they appeared, he planned for problems before they existed. He studied weaknesses patiently. He learned who was emotional, who was desperate, and who could be pushed. When the moment came, he applied just enough force to tip the balance. One delayed shipment, one quiet warning, one removed layer of protection. Small actions created big reactions, and by the time chaos unfolded, it looked natural, unavoidable, and unplanned. Tichen also understood the value of distance. He rarely stayed close to the damage. When things went bad, he was already elsewhere, having different conversations with different people. That distance protected him from blame and suspicion. In the streets, the closest person to the violence is usually the first suspect. Tichen made sure he was never that person. He appeared clean because he designed situations where others became dirty for him. What made this strategy even stronger was his ability to adapt. If a plan failed, he did not panic. He adjusted. He never tied his identity to one outcome. That flexibility kept him ahead of everyone else. Emotional players break when things do not go their way. Strategic players simply change direction. Tichen belonged to the second group. Losses did not anger him. Delays did not frustrate him. Everything was part of a longer timeline only he could see. By the time people started sensing that something was wrong, it was already too late. The damage was done. Trust was broken. Lines were crossed. And once those things happen, there is no easy way back. That is the genius of how Tichen operated. He did not need loyalty because he destroyed it everywhere else. He did not need respect because fear filled the gap. And he did not need visibility because shadows gave him freedom. In the end, Tichen Chan's greatest weapon was not violence, money, or connections. It was patience. He let others rush toward destruction while he stood still, watching the pieces fall exactly where he wanted them. By the time episode 10 arrives, Tichen Chan no longer feels like a background figure. Something about him shifts, not because he changes, but because everyone else finally does. The people around him begin to realize that too many things went wrong in ways that benefited only one man. Too many rivals disappeared. Too many plans failed at the worst possible time. And somehow, Tichen always stood untouched when the smoke cleared. That pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Power does not always announce itself. Sometimes it waits until everyone else is exhausted, confused, and exposed. What makes this realization hit so hard is that Tichen never claims credit. He does not brag. He does not explain. He lets the truth settle slowly. Like a weight in the chest, characters begin replaying past moments in their minds. Old conversations suddenly sound different. Neutral comments now feel like warnings, advice. Once ignored now feels like control disguised as kindness. That is when the fear truly sets in. Not fear of what he might do next, but fear of how long he has already been doing it. His confidence in this stage is quiet but heavy. He does not rush to protect himself because he no longer needs to. The walls are already built. The exits are already blocked. Everyone else is trapped inside situations they helped create. Tichen simply steps forward to claim what was always his. He does not need permission because he never saw these people as equals. He saw them as temporary holders of power he planned to take. Another important detail in this moment is how alone he remains. There is no crew standing behind him, no army revealed at his side. That tells us something critical. His strength was never numbers, it was placement. He positioned everyone else where they would eventually cancel each other out. That way, when the truth came out, there was no one left strong enough to stop him. Isolation was not a weakness for Tichen. It was proof that his plan worked. When others finally understand his role, their reactions are delayed, not because they are calm, but because they are stunned. Rage comes later, panic comes later. In that pause, Tichen holds the advantage. He understands that realization is more damaging than violence. Once someone realizes they have been played for a long time, their confidence breaks. They start questioning every move they make. That hesitation is deadly in a world that rewards speed and certainty. This is the point where the story shifts from confusion to clarity. The chaos of earlier episodes suddenly makes sense. Nothing was random. Nothing was accidental. Tichen did not rise suddenly. He revealed himself slowly, on his own terms. And by the time others see him clearly, the board has already been reset. Not in their favor, but in his. What episode 10 truly exposes is not just who Tichen Chan is, but what kind of threat he represents. He is not a man chasing power out of desperation. He is a man who waited patiently until power had nowhere else to go. And once the truth becomes clear, there is no undoing the damage he has already caused. Once Tichen Chan's true role begins to surface, the balance of power in Chicago does not slowly shift. It cracks. Everything that once felt stable suddenly feels fragile. Alliances that were built on trust start to look like traps. Deals that once promised safety now feel like mistakes. This is the moment where characters understand that the game they were playing was never the real game. They were fighting each other on the surface while Tichen was deciding the outcome underneath it all. What makes this turning point so dangerous is that no one knows how to respond. Violence feels pointless because there is no clear target. Tichen is not exposed in the way enemies usually are. There is no obvious crew to attack, no territory to invade, no clear weakness to exploit. He exists above the usual rules. That realization leaves powerful players frozen. When you cannot see where to strike, even the strongest fighter hesitates. And hesitation is exactly what Tichen counted on. This is also where regret starts to creep in. Characters begin questioning past decisions, wondering which moment sealed their fate. Was it the deal they rushed into? The warning they ignored? The rival they underestimated? Each answer leads back to Tichen's quiet influence. He did not force anyone to act. He gave them options that all led to the same end. That is why blaming him feels useless. Everyone played a part in their own downfall, even if they did not realize it at the time. Emotionally, this moment hits hard. Pride takes a serious blow. Leaders who believed they were in control now realize they were reacting to situations designed by someone else. That kind of realization is humiliating. It weakens confidence and fractures loyalty inside crews. Once doubt spreads, unity breaks, and once unity breaks, survival becomes uncertain. Tichen does not need to attack anyone directly. The damage spreads on its own. Another key shift here is how Tommy's world begins to feel smaller. Moves that once felt bold now feel risky. Enemies are no longer obvious. Friends are no longer guaranteed. Every step forward carries doubt. That uncertainty slows everything down, giving Tichen even more room to operate. While others are forced to rethink their next move, he is already adjusting his long-term plan without pressure. This moment proves something important about Tichen Chan. He was never trying to win fast. He was trying to win clean, not clean in a moral sense, but clean in a strategic one. He wanted to reach a point where resistance collapsed naturally, without needing open war. And when the balance finally shatters, it becomes clear that he succeeded. Power does not always fall with a loud explosion. Sometimes it breaks quietly, piece by piece, until nothing solid is left by the end of this stage. The truth is undeniable. The city is no longer fighting over power. Power has already chosen its new direction, and everyone else is left reacting to a future they no longer control. With Tichen Chan's true position finally exposed, the future of Chicago no longer looks familiar. The rules that once guided survival no longer apply. The streets were built on clear enemies and clear goals. That structure is gone now. Tichen did not just step into power. He changed how power works. From this point forward, nothing moves unless it passes through his influence, whether people accept it or not. That is what makes him more dangerous than anyone before him. He does not need to chase control. Control now comes to him. For Tommy, this changes everything. He has faced enemies who wanted him dead, rivals who wanted his territory, and partners who betrayed him for money. Tichen is different. He is not driven by emotion or ego. That makes him harder to predict and harder to defeat. Tommy thrives in chaos, but this is not chaos. This is order disguised as calm. Every move Tommy makes now risks playing into a larger plan he cannot fully see yet. Fighting back without understanding that plan could make things worse instead of better. The reveal also puts every other character in danger. People who once felt safe because they were neutral now realize neutrality was never protection. Tichen was never neutral. He was patient. Those who benefited from his silence must now question whether they were supported or positioned for later sacrifice. That doubt spreads fast. Trust becomes rare. Fear becomes common. And in a world like this, fear forces people to make mistakes. What truly sets up the future is the absence of comfort. There is no relief after this reveal, no sense that the worst has passed. Instead, the threat feels heavier because it is no longer hidden. When danger is unseen, people move freely. When danger is known but undefined, people freeze. Tichen understands this. He does not need to rush the next step. Pressure alone will force others to act for him. This moment also hints that Tichen's reach goes beyond Chicago. His confidence suggests backup plans, outside connections, and layers still unrevealed. Episode 10 answers one question, but opens several more. Who supports him? Who benefits from his rise? And how far does his control really extend? The truth is, his reveal feels less like an ending and more like the beginning of a larger war, one that will not be fought only with guns, but with timing, leverage, and silence. By the end of it all, one thing becomes clear. Tichen Chan was never meant to be stopped quickly. He was designed to be a long-term threat, one that forces everyone else to evolve or fall. The future is no longer about survival alone. It is about understanding the game before it plays you. And now that Tichen has shown his hand, the real battle is just beginning.